Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project has urged President Muhammadu Buhari to urgently review and withdraw the pardon granted to former governors of Plateau State, Senator Joshua Dariye, and Taraba State, Jolly Nyame. Upholding the pardon, the group argued would ensure impunity for corruption continue as long as influential politicians escape justice for their crimes.
Well, SERAP, in a letter dated the 16th of April 2022 and signed by its Deputy Director, Kolawole Oluwadare, and contained in a statement on Sunday, said the constitutional power of prerogative of mercy ought not to be an instrument of impunity. The group also urged Buhari to propose constitutional amendment to the National Assembly to reform the provisions on the exercise of the prerogative of mercy to make it more transparent, consistent, and compatible with Nigeria's international anti-corruption obligations. Well, joining us this morning is the SERAP Deputy Director, Kolawole Oluwadare, who will be joining us this morning via a telephone conversation. Good morning to you. Thank you so much for being here.
Good morning. I'm happy to be here too. Thank you.
Great. I mean, you just spoke about what we have just mentioned yesterday. Can you please just make it clear what SERAP is actually advocating following the presidential pardon, which has been perceived as inadequate from a few quarters?
Thank you very much. SERAP's position is not different from what would appear to be public opinion on this matter. And we can also call it national interest. But the president's action, while it may appear to be in line with the constitutional provision, Section 175, does not ring true with the president's commitment to fight corruption, and even constitutional provisions that mandate the president himself and other public officers to fight corruption. So what we have done is to write to the president, urging him, of course, to urgently rescind this decision, essentially withdrawing the pardon granted to Mr. Dariye and Mr. Nyame, and to uphold this oath of office, which is swore to under the Constitution, to act in the best interest of Nigeria. There is no way one can look at this action and say that it is in the best interest of Nigeria. And we have also proposed a way out, by the way, to the president as a form of advisory. There needs to be an amendment to Section 175 of the Constitution, under which the president acted, to make it more transparent and set clear guidelines, if you can call it that, to be consistent with constitutional provisions and other international conventions that Nigeria has ratified to in the fight against corruption.
All right. So Mike Ozekome, a human rights lawyer, says President Muhammadu Buhari erred in law by granting pardon to the former governors. Now, the senior lawyer came out to say, since the offenses were committed against states, not against the federal government, it lies in the hand of the state governors to grant them a pardon. According to the Constitution, according to the law of our land, Nigeria, is this the right way to go? And what's your take on it?
I wouldn't. The position you mentioned about the state, the offenses being committed in the state, I do not have a comment on that. But that which is clear is that the president acted purportedly under Section 175 of the Constitution, which makes no clear demarcation about whether they are state offenses or federal offenses as they are. Even if it was granted by the state governors, it still would not be consistent with other constitutional provisions that mandate public officials to fight corruption, and it will be inconsistent with Nigeria's international obligations to fight corruption. So whether the action is carried out by the president or by state governors or any other public officer, it has the effect of encouraging impunity and encouraging corruption. And I think that is much more important.
All right. Well, remember that the former governors Dariye and Nyame and 157 other convicts were shown mercy following the recommendation of the Presidential Advisory Committee last week. And we just asked Reese not too long ago that is it right for the president to grant pardon, or should it come from the state governors? But of course, we do understand that you have said that you don't have a comment on that. But my next question to you simply is, out of the 159, why is SERAP focusing on just these two governors, former governors, I beg your pardon?
Now, simply put, because of the import of that decision. So that decision has the effect of encouraging corruption. And so when you look at the offenses of these two individuals, And even the reaction of the public as at the time of their arraignment, their trial and their convictions, up all the way to the Supreme Court, you would appear clearly that public opinion is in favor of these convictions, not necessarily from the punitive point of view, but because of the cost and of the high rate of corruption, which is why Nigerians want these measures to be seen as a way to dissuade others from corrupt acts. When you put Nigeria's ranking on the Transparency Index, for instance, against the convictions we've had and the punishment meted out to convicted individuals who have been found to be corrupt, you would see that they are not at par. So at the best the government can do in this instance is not take this steps. So this step for these two individuals simply shows that the fight against corruption is still a long way from getting started out in Nigeria at all. And it would show clearly that the president is not committed at all to fighting corruption in Nigeria. And that is why we believe that this action must be rescinded and there must be an amendment to those to the constitutional provisions that allow the president to act without clear checks and balances in this instance.
Looking at the two important persons who were of interest for the 159 people that were pardoned, we have Nyame, the former governor, who is serving a 12-year jail sentence for diverting 1.64 billion naira during his tenure as governor of Taraba State, while we have Dariye, who is serving 10 years imprisonment for 1.12 billion naira fraud. Both were granted pardons on the ground of age and ill health. Now, they're both in their 60s. One is 62 years of age, 62, 64, and the other is about 66 years of age. Is health issue, is that really enough reason for a presidential pardon? Bear in mind that there are other people who are much older, who have lesser offenses, and whose terms or sentences are way longer as we speak.
Yes, Section 175 does not create such clear guidelines as to what the president would consider, except with the vagueness of public interest, which is why, again, we are asking the president to sponsor an executive bill to amend Section 175 of the Constitution that allows him to grant pardons to be clear, to create clear, specific requirements that the president can look out in exercising this discretionary constitutional power. But having said that, and this is not personal, this has nothing to do with these individuals. It is about the public morality, public interest, so to speak, of these actions. You have mentioned the ages of these individuals and even the years, the jail terms meted out to them. But when you look at the nature of the offense and even the effect on the people, we're talking of over 1 billion for these individuals respectively. And then you look at the cost and effect on that on the people of those states at the time. These are funds that would have been used for roads, for education, for health. And so we cannot even begin to think about and compute the human cost of these corrupt acts by these individuals, and then to marry that with the justice of the sentences meted out to them, which frankly, some people may argue that it's not enough, as it were. How much more to ground a cost for pardon? So we do not know clearly what the president was thinking, what was his basis for granting this pardon. But what is clear is that the pardon is not in the public interest.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. We truly appreciate your conversation with us concerning this issue. SERAP indeed continuing to bring upon a lot of Nigerians information that is very, very dire and one that everyone should know about. Thank you for talking to us.